Okay, welcome to the Stutzman channel. In this video, I have a riding mower that's 25 years old, and the engine is leaking oil. And it's leaking oil from the bottom of the engine, where this engine has a vertical crankshaft and there's a seal. And to get to it, basically you got to pull the engine out. And I looked at it, and if I got to do all this, then I'm just as well, looking at some other things. Maybe looking at some valve clearances, maybe the head gaskets, pulling the heads, cleaning carbon, and what other else, other gaskets and all we're going to look at. Because like I said, this engine is 25 years old, this mower is, and I've never done really anything other than, spark plugs, belts, just the general maintenance stuff. So we're going to take a little kind of a deep dive into this thing. Okay, so that's it for the introduction. Let's get going and ripping this here engine out of this here mower. Alright, so you can see here's the engine. Engine is Briggs and Stratton 20.5, and you can see this is the twin cylinder second generation. Okay, one of the first things you want to do before you remove the engine is you want to go ahead and just get the deck out. Makes it a lot easier to get access to underneath, to the belt for the transmission, and also for the bolts that's mounting the engine itself. In my case, my deck is about 25 years old, had a lot of rusted areas. I went ahead and took and patched those areas. You can see one was right here. So I took a torch, heated it up, the plate, took and welded this in, got rid of the rust, and primed it, painted it. Also, all of the pulleys are new, the idlers are new, the drive belts are new. Had a worn bushing here, brake lever pad, that was worn, so I replaced that. Some of the bolts were stripped out, so I replaced all that with stainless steel hardware. And also it's got brand new blades, it's got new scalp wheels. And so like I said, anything that was worn, I went ahead and took care of it. So let's go ahead and let's get to the mower now. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this here cover, take this whole assembly off right here. Here, and there's another bolt right here. 1/2-inch socket will take care of that. On the left side of the mower, we got a bolt here and we got a bolt here. 3/8 socket will take care of that. There is that bolt. And down here, again the 3/8 socket. Spacer behind this, longer bolt. On the right hand side of the mower, same setup. Also, you want to disconnect the connectors for the headlight. Now we remove the hood. Now we're degreasing the engine before we pull it. Alright, so right now everything has been cleaned up. This is where we remove the cover that goes over here. And also down in here, this is all being cleaned up. Cleaned the bottom where the engine mounts, and of course as much as I can on the engine, intake manifold, carburetor. It's coming off from the PTO shaft this way, and it's going around the top of this pulley. Then it's going over to this here pulley, the next one, and then it's going around the pulley on the back, which is on top of the transmission, and that will be this pulley right here. Then the belt comes around, as you can see there, and then it is going straight back to the PTO pulley. Alright, so let's go ahead and get this nut off. So we have a nut and we have a split lock washer. So that's what we have. Alright, and let's see if we can get this thing pulled up, the bolt up. Alright, and then we're just going to lower him down, put the bolt back in, And then we're going to put the nut on here. And then we're going to put this washer, lock washer, and then the nut. Okay. So that made it pretty loose. So now maybe, yeah, that should be enough. So now we're going to be taking this here double pulley off right here. Okay, so we're going to be removing this here double pulley 5/8 socket to fit this bolt. And that's what he looks like. So we have the flat, and we have a split lock washer and a flat. I tried to take a hammer, and I was hitting up here on the top, but it was stuck, so I got a 3-jaw puller on here, and that seems to be working pretty good. So I'm going to keep doing this until this pulley gets off of this here shaft, and then I'll catch you in the next shot. Alright, so I got it tapped down pretty good now with the pulley, or with the puller. I got it down, and then I used a hammer and I just tapped it on down. Then I got it enough to clear these here ribbed areas so I can get the belt off. And so now we're just gonna take it on down. You notice this on the top, there's a spacer that fits right up on the top. Now there's also a keyway that's in the shaft of the crankshaft, and and the key is inside the pulley. All right, coming on the top side, we're going to be taking this here shield off for this for the muffler. There's 2 bolts for it. One of them is right here beside this here harness that goes to the headlights. Looks like it has a little strap right here also that's holding this here harness. So as I said, 1/2-inch socket, that should take care of that. And then there's one over here on the other side, which is right there. So let's take care of that one. Now that the 2 bolts are out, you should be able to just lift this right out of there. And I noticed too that I had a piece here where the bolt was on one of them. This here little leg is broken off, so I'm gonna have to weld that back on. Alright, I need to remove these 2 cables. This is going one to the carburetor for the choke, one of them is going down here for the throttle for the governor. So to remove this, it has a little bracket which goes behind the air cleaner. So I think what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead, we're just going to remove this here air cleaner assembly next. Now I should point out that it is not necessary to remove this cleaner assembly. But I just want to do it so I can inspect the filter, and also you guys can probably get a better look at how the linkages is connected and all. So I've already loosened the bolts. So this one right here is you can just take a flat head, screw it out, lift the top cover off. Then you'll see 2 wing nuts. Take them off, and then you can just lift the whole entire assembly straight out, and then you'll have this retainer plate that sits on top of the air filter, and you can kind of see what that looks like. Then we have this here little plate that we'll just lift up. And then you'll see there's 3 bolts here. And an 8mm socket will take care of that. As I've already mentioned, I've already went ahead and loosened these things up just to save us a little bit of time. One more to go. And then once you get that, you're going to notice there's a hose right here. If I can tilt it so you can see it, there is a hose right here. This is for the breather hose. So you can just take it and squeeze it in, push it down, lift it right off, and there is that hose right there. Okay, getting back to throttle and choke cables, let's go ahead and remove them. First one I'm going to do is this here throttle cable. We've got a bolt right here, 5/16 nut driver will take care of that. Go ahead and screw it out a little more. Now we unhook it, and now we have a Z-bend down here, and we notice that it's in this here first hole furthest this way. So I'm going to go ahead and take him out. Now we're going to remove this here choke cable. As you can see, we have a bolt right here. Again, it's 5/16, and if we take notice, it's in the very bottom hole of this here choke lever right here. So let's go ahead and unscrew him. Lift him out. Again, we have another Z-bend, so let's get him on out of there. Now, since these two cables are still attached to the engine, as far as the engine shroud, we're going to be moving this here clamp and this here bracket. So this is a Phillips screw. So we're going to go ahead and remove that one. And then this down here, this is a 3/8 head socket. We'll take care of that. And now we got that loose. Okay, I think the next thing I want to do is try to remove this muffler. Now there's 4 bolts, as you can see, that's on the top, securing this muffler. Now these exhaust pipes, they should just stick right down in the muffler, and you can see they come back over here to the cylinder heads. One over here and one over there. Now, right now, I don't want to mess with these bolts. They look pretty rusty too. So I think the first thing I'm going to try to do is get this here muffler off, as I mentioned. And I'm going to just hit it with some Kroll. I already put a little bit on here earlier. So I'm just going to do that. Probably come up here. Let me go ahead and get these soaked in there. And I'll get the other side too. Okay, let's see if we can get these bolts off without them breaking out. 3/8 socket will take care of it. Okay, once I get the bolts out, then I'll catch you in the next shot. I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove this here plate that's over top of this here muffler also. So there's a bolt here, and then there's one over here. 1/2-inch socket will take care of that. Alright, I couldn't get the muffler off, so what I came up to do here is I went back up to the exhaust pipe where it connects to the cylinder heads on each side. I took one of the bolts out, I loosened the other one, I took the bolt out, loosened the other one, and now, by the way, a 7/16 socket will fit those bolts that's going in the cylinder head. So this thing should, since it's loose now, it should come on down. And there we go. Alright, I went ahead and I took the exhaust manifold, or the exhaust pipe I should say. Now, this one right here is on the left hand side, that if you're sitting in the driver's seat, so it's on the left. And from the driver's seat, this is the right exhaust pipe. If you notice on the left hand side, you can see that it's got a shorter bend, where on this one over here, it goes way down, and then it starts to make the bend. And by the way, that's the bolts for one of them. So as I mentioned, it's a 1/4-20 bolt, 7/16 head, and it has a split lock washers on each one. Okay, the bolts that I just showed you, I went ahead and I just screwed them right back into the cylinder head, and I did the same thing on the other side. Okay, we're going to be removing this fuel line that's going to the carburetor. 1/4-inch nut driver is what I'm going to be using. Slide the hose clamp back. And let's see if we can just twist it off. Then I'm going to take the hose clamp and I'm just going to kind of screw it back on so the clamp doesn't fall off. Now this fuel line that we just took off continues around on the right hand side of the engine if you're sitting in the seat. So we're going to be loosening up these two clamps that's holding this fuel line. 3/8 socket. And I'm just going to screw them right back in there by hand. We're going to be disconnecting these two connectors here. This one right here, the yellow wire, single by itself, is for the keel wire that goes to the ignition coil. This connector with two wires is going back up to the charging system. And if we follow this, you can see this here goes right up here on the front. So I'm going to disconnect it right here. Keel wire first. Connector for the charging system. And this is a keyed connector, so it only go in one way. Alright, we're on the left hand side of the engine. If you're sitting in the driver's seat here, we're at the starter motor, and we're going to be removing this here cable that's going to the starter motor. 7/16 wrench is what I'm using. No washers, no locks, and I'm going to put the nut right back on there. Okay, I'm underneath the mower now. I'm going to be loosening up these 4 bolts that's securing the engine. One is here, one is over there. Not sure if you can see that, but there's another one here, and there's another one over here. 9/16 socket will take care of that. Once I just loosen the bolts, then I'm going to lower this whole assembly down. And I believe we have detached everything from the engine, so it should be ready to pull this thing out. Alright, I'm on the left hand side of the engine from the driver's seat, and what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to drain the oil. And I've already lowered the mower, so it's back on level ground now. I got a pair of channel locks holding this here pipe. It's in the back, and then I also got a 7/8 inch wrench. So we'll go ahead and we're going to loosen that. And then I'll catch you guys in the next shot once I get this here cap off. So we're draining the oil now. So I'm going to let that continue until it just barely dribbles out. Okay, we got the cap screwed back on. So let's go over to the right hand side of the engine from the driver's seat, and let's work on taking off the oil filter. So as I mentioned, we're on the right hand side of the engine. Oil filter's here. Going to put an oil filter wrench on it, and we're just going to loosen it up. And again, I got a catch pan, catch any kind of oil. And we're going to let all that drain. Alright, we're going to get a shop rag. We're going to try to clean up some of this engine oil that ran on top of the frame here. And then I'm going to wipe the housing off where the oil filter was on. And then I'm just going to take, and I'm just going to screw this filter right back on. We're going to be replacing the engine oil and of course the filter. Okay, I went back under the mower, and I just went ahead and zipped out these 4 3/8/16 bolts. That was a 9/16 head, so they're all out now, and I just used the impact gun to zip them out of there. So as we can see, with those 4 bolts out, the engine is loose, ready to be lifted up out of there. Now obviously, with the crankshaft coming out of the bottom, this engine would have to be laying on the side, and I didn't want to work on this thing, so I wanted to make some kind of like an engine stand. So this is what I came up with. It's basically just 3/4 inch plywood for the top, the rest of it's 2x4s. So you can see right here we have the assembly drawing. You can pause it if you want to look at the dimensions, so you can see what I did here. Here's a plywood top. This hole here, 3-inch hole, this is where the crankshaft is going to go down. These other holes, 5/8 inch, the other 4, that's for the that's going to be for the mounting of the engine. Now if we go to the next drawing, you can see we got some support rails. I got 4 of these, 24 inches long. We got 21-inch support rails. That's 4 of them required. And the last thing is going to be the legs, which are 20 inches. And as you can see, the engine is sitting on top of the stand. Worked out pretty good. Now you can see a reason maybe why I wanted 20-inch legs, because this here little stool, I measured it so I can sit down, and then this way I can work around the engine. Let's take a look underneath. You can see what I did underneath there. As you can see, I got the crankshaft. It's coming right through the center of the hole, and I have the 4 bolts, and they worked out perfect. Now it's not required to have 4 bolts, but 2 would have been enough, but I wanted to put 4 in to be sure that these mounting holes was gonna, line up when I put it on the drawing. I figured you guys might want to know what all that banging and pounding and shouting and all was about. Well, this is a house right across from me that they were doing the roofing on. As I mentioned, they had 9 guys out here on this thing. They started this morning to ripping all this stuff off, and today at 5:30 they have got it done. Amazing. Okay guys, that's going to wrap this video up, and we'll see you guys in the next one. You take care.